everybody, welcome back for another video. My name is Jasmine and I am making this video today to answer as many of your questions as I can that you had following my last video that I posted regarding the SBA application. I know that there is a lot of confusion regarding what you should do if you did something wrong on the application, or how you might need to answer some questions. If you are still looking for answers on how to fill out the application, I would suggest that you first go watch the last video that I posted so that you can, have some help going through the application, and then watch this video next to see if you have any other questions. Let's just jump right into it. The first question was whether you should be including your spouse's income on this application, and the answer is no. The only income that you should be including on this application is the income that is generated from that self-employment activity that you're claiming as your small business, or as your self-employment gig, or as your independent contract work. Those are all the same thing. So if your spouse is also self-employed, then he or she would also submit a separate application for themselves and hopefully get the $1,000 grant separately. Second most prominent question was, can I reject the loan? And the answer to that is yes, absolutely. If you have no need to take that business loan, then absolutely do not take that business loan. There is a 3.75% interest rate attached to it over a 30-year repayment. Repayment starts in 12 months. There is no formal reject button to hit, but based on the experience I've had with several other clients, they didn't accept it, and then within like 14 days they got a first email that said, hey, we're just reminding you that you haven't accepted it and it won't be available to you forever. And then they got it again in another subsequent 15 days, which was like a total 30-day mark. So if you don't accept it within 30 days, I think it just goes away and you're no longer considered or approved for that. That is something that's entirely separate from this first $1,000 grant that is forgivable. The reason why I say it's forgivable is because it is still a little bit unclear as to whether there's going to be a forgiveness process that needs to be applied for, or whether this is just like, we gave it to you, there's no follow-up process to even apply. Verbiage of the Eidl grant is written as is forgivable, which then to me suggests that there would be a process that would need to be followed if it's forgivable, meaning it might not be forgivable. So anyway, that $1,000 is something entirely separate. Now, the reason why I know that it's a grant for sure, in addition, outside of the fact that we know it's a grant, but one of the other questions I'm getting a ton is, well, how do I know if it's a grant? There's no verbiage that says the word grant. I just compare it to the loan part. The loan, you're going through a formal acceptance process where you're signing for it, for holding yourself responsible to pay it back. Whereas the grant is just something that's deposited into your bank account between 24 and 72 hours after you submit this like 3-minute thing online. And you never sign for anything, accepting anything. So I would find it very difficult for someone to be able to hold you on the hook of paying it back, in addition to the fact that it's just a grant, guys. If you don't feel comfortable taking it because you don't believe that it's a grant based on what the SBA is saying, just because they're not wording it that way in some form or fashion, then of course you can just always deny it. Rhonda Pena asked, I received my first paycheck with Vipkid in January 2020. I'm also a recent teacher retiree from the public school system. Would I be able to apply? If so, what would I put for my 2019 income if my first paycheck was in 2020? So two things. One, the application says to include all of your income prior to January 31st, 2020. So just going off of that, you would put the amount that you earned in January of 2020, because that, is obviously prior to January 31st of 2020. The second part about that, this is another question many people had. You have to be only self-employed, or can you be like a brick and mortar teacher and then also, for example, be a Vipkid teacher, or for anybody else that's just self-employed and doing this application, can you have a salary position or hourly position getting a W-2 in addition to being self-employed? And the answer is absolutely yes. As long as you have self-employed income, it does not have to only be self-employment. And Ali O'Donnell, I file taxes jointly with my husband. He is a W-2 employee and I'm purely 1099. I included his income because that is what it said for our gross income on our tax return. Is that going to be a problem? It's not going to be a problem because you're not getting the grant based on how much revenue you made. It's just $1,000 per employee or per independent contractor / sole proprietor. Doreen Morrison said, what if you don't hear anything back at all? I had a few clients that didn't hear anything for a couple of weeks from the time that we submitted their application. So, you know, really the only worth it answer I could give you is have your confirmation number handy and contact the SBA. When you call them, you kind of get different answers depending on who you're talking to. And I'm sure you guys have had that with different places that you've called. I know I certainly have. A lot of people are saying like, hey, when I contacted the SBA and told them that I made a mistake on my application, they told me to submit a duplicate application. Should I be submitting a duplicate application? So far, the agents that I've spoken to and the information that I have suggests that resubmitting a duplicate application will be beneficial because one of the two is going to be looking to get processed. Sorry, excuse my missing nail polish. Quarantine. One of them is not going to get processed because there's some incorrect information on it. The other one that's a duplicate, now updated application could be processed because it is correct information on there. So other resources are saying, no, don't do that because revenue agents that realize there's two applications for one social security number get mad and just don't process the application. I feel like that's a little bit something to do with a little bit of a personal problem that person has going on, because I don't know why you would just all of a sudden not process somebody's application because they made a mistake. And so as far as submitting a duplicate application goes, I would personally submit a duplicate application. And you know what, as a matter of fact, I think I did submit a duplicate application at the very beginning when I did this. I don't know, I don't remember because I was applying for too many people, so I can't say for sure. But I would submit a duplicate application and have both confirmation numbers handy. Contact the SBA and give them both confirmation numbers and let them know which one is the old one and which one is the new one. And, you know, just ask them for help and be like, is there any way you can like cancel out the old one so that my solid, good application can be in turn for processing rather than the old one? That would help. Oh, this is another really good one everybody had. Jennifer Hutchins, do you know approximately how long after the advance has been deposited can you expect to receive the notice of the loan email? I've had clients who have gotten it within 48 hours of applying and getting the grant. I've had a client who got the loan offer maybe like a month later. So I think this is a very random processing situation. I would like to hope that it was like as you submit, it gets processed, but things are happening at different times and sometimes in different ways. So quickly, while we're on it, I'll just say when you do get the loan offer, you will have to pay that part of it back. Some people are confusing that second part of the offer, which is the loan. They're confusing that with something that's entirely separate, which is the PPP loan. That is a forgivable loan, but that is not the second part of this SBA loan that's being offered. The second portion of this SBA application that you're now submitting, which is the loan offer that they're giving you after the $1,000 grant, that is not the PPP loan. The PPP loan is something totally different. It's the Paycheck Protection Program, and it has nothing to do with this application that we're working on right now that we're talking about. So just know that that's something entirely different. Yes, that is something that you can also apply for as an independent contractor, sole proprietor, or small business. And I will make that a separate entire video by itself, so it's not to be confused with this EIDL loan by any means at all. Christy Lunglen said, hey Jasmine, why is it that we have to put sole proprietor instead of independent contractor? Those two are the identically same things. So being an independent contractor is the same thing as being a sole proprietor. Some people in the group were making the distinguishment that a sole proprietor versus an independent contractor, that the difference has something to do with whether someone receives a 1099 or not, or whether they're just like their own boss and like they collect cash or they send out invoices or whatnot, rather than having someone who issues them a 1099. And that absolutely makes no difference in the definition of being an independent contractor versus a sole proprietor. those two things are the same. So on the application, if you put either one, which I'm pretty sure they were maybe in the same line description option, then you're fine. So yeah, they're the same thing. Oh, for Vipkid teachers, her second question was where they ask about gross revenue prior to January 31st. Do we put the amount that we made in January but didn't get paid till in February? And the answer is no. You only want to put the amounts that you received payment for in January. Cool? Lashona Johnson Peterson said, thank you for this information. I put an amount for the cost of goods. What's going to happen? Will I be denied? No, you will absolutely not be denied for putting a cost of goods, because that there's no verification of the numbers that you put on the application in order to be processed for that automatic $1,000. So if there was some verification process and you had to submit and you didn't have verification of cost of goods sold, I could understand how at that point being denied could be an option. But since at this there's been no verification process of what information was put on the application, there's no way that you could be denied because of a figure or number that was put either for revenue or cost of goods sold. Is there a reason I got the grant but I never got an email for the loan? I don't want it anyway, but I was worried why I didn't get it, and that could just be because you haven't gotten it yet. So yeah, I think you guys, if I'm trying to think of anything else off the top of my head really quickly, you're asking if this is going to be taxable income about both things, about the EIDL grant and the EIDL loan. So let me make it clear very quickly about the loan portion. If you subsequently accept it after the grant, no, that is absolutely not going to be taxable income. That is a loan. It's something that you have to pay back. So it's actually a liability, not income. It's not an asset. So anyway, that's that. As far as the grant portion and whether the $1,000 grant that you're going to get, whether it is taxable income or not, at this point, that is one of the things that the IRS and the SBA have not solidified yet. It may be considered taxable income. I personally think that it's going to be a little bit taxing. That's funny. No pun intended, but I think that's going to be a little bit taxing, or difficult, I should say, to be able to issue some sort of income statement, tax income statement, that will force people to have to report it on their taxes as income. We don't know. Like, they haven't said that they're going to issue 1099s to everybody who got that $1,000 grant. And if they're not planning on issuing 1099s to everybody to ensure that it's going to be reported on the end of year tax return, they would probably have to do it in a different way. So to be able to reconcile those things, you know, like when a company issues you a W-2 or a 1099, like Vipkid gives you a 1099, that's also issued to the IRS or submitted to the IRS. That's the reason why the IRS is able to match whether your income that you report on your tax return versus what was reported to the IRS for you or on your behalf, and that's how they know whether you report your correct income or not. Oh, how should you be spending this money, and how should you be tracking this money? How to track it, that's kind of an easy one to say, like, really quickly, which is that whatever you spend, just keep track of it. That's related to business. So either create an Excel sheet for yourself or keep a handy dandy notepad and write the date of the purchase, what you purchased, how much it was, where you bought it from, and keep the receipt, or type that up in an Excel sheet. And then as far as how that's verified, I'm imagining that as a Schedule C self-employed independent contractor filing taxes, that you would maybe just submit your Schedule C at the end of the year, and whatever your total amount of expenses was, that would be the amount that you would be able to show. I don't know if they're going to do it as a whole something where you can just show your total tax return and all your expenses will be shown. As long as they exceed $1,000, it qualifies as you having spent that $1,000 on business expenses, or whether, you know, they're going to do it a different way. But anyway, that's that. And then as far as what to spend it on and what business expenses qualify, for all other self-employed people, I mean, like, generally speaking, let's just say you know to spend it on business expenses, right? Like, subscriptions for your business that you're running, rent for your office, or any kind of tools that you have to buy, a laptop, headphones, computer, inventory. If you're just self-employed overall, then, you know, just think of general business expenses and spend it on that. But if you are specifically a Vipkid teacher, then you can spend it, of course, on props. You can spend it on your internet bill. You can spend it on Feedback Panda that you use, you can spend it on your cell phone bill, because you do have to have a phone in order to conduct business. And to be honest, I don't think that they're gonna come and have you show line by line what you spent $1,000 on, because ain't nobody got time for that, to be frank. I think what makes more sense in them verifying how you spent the money is to have you submit your Schedule C at the end of the year, which would show your total business expenses. And as long as you had more than $1,000 in business expenses total on your Schedule C, then that means that you spent more than $1,000 on business expenses, because you obviously have it on your tax return, right? So that's how I would think of it. I know that a lot of people out there are looking for a specific, like, black and white answer, and to be honest, a lot of things still have gray area, so there is not a black and white answer. And then in this field of things, period, like with applications and things being submitted and IRS and accounting and all that, some things are gray area and very subjective, and so it really is about how you work with it and how you maneuver the process. So anyway, I don't want to make this too chatty and long. I hope that you guys were able to get some answers for some of the questions that you had. Please leave the questions that I did not answer for you below, and I will do my best to make sure that I research the answer if it's a question that needs research, and I will get back to you guys with the answer. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.